Welcome back to another episode of the A10 Insider Podcast here on the Field of 68 Media Network. We are presented by Bet River Sportsbook, and we are partnering this episode for Run Your Pool. Make sure you go to the link in the description below, jump in the pool with us, and you can prove whether or not you know ball better than me or Coach Matt McCall here. He's joining me, my guest on the podcast today. We're going to be breaking down the Atlantic 10 tournament. Before we get into this, the bracket is officially unveiled. I love bracket season, by the way. I love conference tournament week where you got 10 million brackets you got to figure out. You've been on both sides of the coin when it comes to conference tournaments, when it comes to automatic bids, when it comes to trying to find a way to get into the big dance. You've been on teams, you've coached teams that were in one bid leagues where you had to win the tournament and cut down the nets to be able to play. And you've been on teams where you were the favorite and basically you're just, please don't get hurt. Please don't get hurt. Please don't get hurt. So what is, what are the different mindsets? What is it like heading into this event? Is it different if you're someone like a George Mason or George Washington versus a VCU in this situation? Well,
I think this year is a little bit different for the Atlantic 10. I think especially with you look at VCU, and the Atlantic 10 has always been a multi-bid league. And I think this year, just with where things stand, I think we can talk about this in more detail shortly, but just VCU's numbers, their net numbers, their quad one wins, I think they've done enough, but I do think they got to get to the finals. But, the mentality of a favorite that you have to win the tournament to get a bid. When I was at Chattanooga, we had 26 wins going into the tournament. We had beaten Dayton, who was a tournament team. We had beaten Georgia. We had beaten Illinois, but we still weren't in the field. And the mindset is you've got to stress to your team what we just did throughout those 18 games means nothing. The team that plays the best from here on out is going to the NCAA tournament. Here's the other thing. Your first round game, I don't care what the team is seeded, you're going to be in a close game. And you need to understand that. So if you go into the half and you're down 2 and you're mentally messed up because we should be beating this team, and now you start to let your nerves get into play, anything can happen. And you see it all over these tournaments. Upsets, higher seeds beating lower seeds. I mean, look what's going on in the Southern Conference. Nobody had Chattanooga in the final game tonight, and they're in the final game because they played better than the teams they played. So that's the mentality. Your team has to understand, guys, we're going to be in a close game. And if you're one of the lower seeds, hey, listen, we have as good a shot as anybody else in this tournament to win it. Because you know what? The team that plays the best from here on out is going to the NCAA tournament. I don't care what we did in the regular season. I'm packing 4 polos, 4 pairs of pants. I'm planning on staying until Sunday and trying to stress that mentality to your team. I mean, look, last year I was fired with 3 games to go and decided to finish the season, and we were 1 possession away from beating Dayton and in the semifinals of the Atlantic 10 tournament. So anything can happen. It's all about your mentality and going into it. But just stressing, if you're the favorite, hey, guys, I don't care who we're playing in our quarterfinal matchup. The game's going to be close, and get ready for it. And I always felt like that first game was the most difficult one. And once you kind of got over that, things, I don't want to say got easier, but your team kind of settled down and just started playing.
Yeah, it's the mental factor of understanding that, like, look, just because you're playing a lower seeded team doesn't mean that you're guaranteed to win by 25 points. The best example of that to me, Virginia and UMBC in the first round of the 2018 tournament. A 16 seed kind of got up a little bit, and you could just see it get into Virginia's head. They were like, I can't believe that we're going to be the first 1 seed to lose to a 16, with 15 minutes left in the game. You got 3 pros on that, right? Like, just go play your game.
I'll never forget this. I'll tell you a story. When I was at Florida and we had Noah and Horford and all those guys, Bill Belichick came and talked to our team. And I used this when I was at Chattanooga because we were the clear-cut favorite going into the tournament. But he had up on the video a horse race. Mm-hmm. And he's showing this horse race, and he stops it in the middle of the race, and he looks at everybody, and he goes, all right, who's winning this horse race? And everyone's kind of looking around like, we don't know. And he goes, I'll tell you who. The horse that runs the freaking fastest from this point on. They don't care what they're seeded, who the favorite is. They're just trying to get to their damn oat bag. That's all they care about. They got blinders on, and they're running. And that's the mentality. And I'll never forget, he went out of the room, and Joe Kim Noah stood up and fist pumped, and he goes, who's Bill Belichick? It's like, okay, you gotta dial in here a little bit. But that's the mentality. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you're seeded. Anything can happen. And that's why, like you said, this week is unbelievable. I mean, these low major, mid major leagues. I mean, how exciting! My man John Pelphrey, I felt so bad for him the other night in that game with what transpired. They're an inch away from going to the tournament. It just makes it so exciting and so much fun to watch.
Yeah. That SEMO Tennessee Tech game was maybe the wildest finish I've ever seen in a conference title game. Like, just the idea of having your tournament won, right? You're up by 7 with like a minute left, then blowing that lead and thinking that you lost at the buzzer, and then like, whoa, we haven't lost yet. Like, we're still playing. We got to go find a way to win, and then coming back and actually finding a way to win. Like, it just, man, that was
tough. And John Pelphrey is one of the best. We shared a bench together at Florida for a number of years, and I was in my hotel room up here in Stamford, Connecticut, and when the kid hit the 3 to go up 1, I was jumping up and down and celebrating, and then all of a sudden they called the foul on the other end, and I went from celebrating to so angry at the officials for calling that foul to then celebrating again when I thought they won on the buzzer beater. It was a wave of emotions. I can't even imagine what those kids are feeling, but it just makes it so exciting. And again, tonight you got Chattanooga Furman in the Southern Conference Championship. Obviously, Furman's favored. They've been favored, but who knows what's going to happen?
All right, so let's talk about this A10 tournament. Let's talk about I want to start with the 4 double buys, the 4 favorites. VCU is the 1 seed, potentially would get St. Louis in the quarterfinals. No, semifinal. Yeah, semifinals. If they end up winning it out. Dayton is the 2 seed. Fordham is the 3 seed. They would play each other on the other side of the bracket. Do you think look, VCU didn't get any favors done from them. They get probably, I'd say, the team with the best guards, I think. Is that fair to say, with St. Louis in the semifinals? You get either Davidson or you get Mark Schmidt in the quarterfinals. Like, it just, this bracket just did not break out all that favorably, I don't think, for VCU.
And I think that the semifinal matchup with the hottest team in the A10 right now in George Mason is going to be quite a basketball game. I mean, Mason went in and beat Dayton at Dayton. Not too many teams can do that. I look at their team, and Ticket Gaines, as they call him, he missed 10 games. So had he played in those 10 games, George Mason may be sitting here with a double bye, and we may be talking about them as a potential favorite to win this thing. They're deep. They've got Adoro, who could be the best player in the league. I don't know who wins player of the year in the league. My vote would probably be James Bishop, and what GW has done this year is just remarkable, the turnaround that they've had. But they got size. They defend. They've got shooting. They've got an unbelievable big guy. Do not sleep on George Mason. And they've won, what is it, 8 in a row, 7 in a row?
They've won 6 in a row. They won 6 in a row. They went 4-6 when Ticket Gaines missed those 10 games. Outside of that, they started the season 2-4. They've lost 2 games with Ticket Gaines since Thanksgiving. 2 games.
I'm telling you right now, that top half of that bracket is dangerous. And, again, St. Louis is going to wait the winner of Mason and either Richmond or UMass, and that's going to be a battle. And everyone had St. Louis pegged as the favorite going in. We've talked about it before, just their depth, their size, Yuri Collins being one of the best point guards in the country. But Perkins coming off that knee, I think when you watch him play, he's just not the same right now. I think he's gotten better, and he's had some big games. But I did one of their games live, and you could see, man, he was so good before he got hurt, and coming off that, and hopefully he can get back to that level, and I think he can, but it takes time, and he's just not at that level yet. But don't count them out. But that St. Louis, George, if Mason gets past either Richmond or UMass, man, that's going to be one heck of a game, and that top half of that bracket is tough.
Yeah, I would love to see a VCU George Mason semifinal, because that's like the throwback CAA. I think I've told you this before. The best environment that I've been in for a college basketball game, a neutral site game, was at the old Richmond Coliseum. It was, I want to say, the CAA tournament semifinals, maybe in 2012, 2011. Shaka was still at VCU. And
Larinaga had to be there.
Yeah, Larinaga was still at George Mason. And they had the two bands. The Peppas were there. The Doc Nicks and the Green Machine were there, and they were all packed in this gym that fit like maybe like 9,000 people. And it was like half of it was green, half of it was black and gold. And you had these two huge bands in there, and it was like a battle of the bands with all of these fans that were completely out of their minds playing like this close game. It was unbelievable. That is a fun rivalry. If I hope Kimmy gets George Mason going, because if we have Mason VCU as like a rivalry to kind of put a tent pole in when it comes to the Atlantic 10, that is one, great thing for the league, two, a great thing for the sport, and three, you want to throw GW in that mix with computer there. A lot of fun young coaches in this conference. All right. Other side of the bracket, Dayton potentially gets George Washington or Loyola, St. Joe's, whoever wins that game. And then Fordham and Duquesne, that's the one I got kind of circled in terms of like another quarterfinal matchup. Who would have had Fordham and Duquesne as top 6 teams in the A10 this year? But they're here. Keith Ergo, Keith Dambro, the battle of the Keiths. Talk to me about the other side.
Nobody had either one of those teams where they are right now. And it's amazing that they played on Saturday and the winner got the double bye. Like that, like they got themselves to that point. And you look at Duquesne, and what Coach Dambrot has done this season is he brought in 10 new guys. Trey Williams is really the only guy that scored a basket for them on last year's team. They win 2 wins. He knew late in the season that, hey, guys, we got to change this thing. We got to flip this thing. And he went out and he addressed their shooting issues. He addressed their turnover issues. And you look at his teams over the years, they've always had these giant front court players, and they pounded it inside, and they were physical on defense. And they've kind of flipped the script, and they shoot a ton of threes. And it's worked, and they defend. And they're fun to watch. I mean, I like GW too. I think like we talked about earlier, what Chris Caputo's been able to do there in a short amount of time. And how about this stat, Rob? When those two guards, when Bishop and Adams combine to score 35 points or more, they're undefeated in league play. Mm-hmm. So as you're watching them play, and if they get to that Dayton game, keep an eye on those two guards, because if they go off, they don't lose. And everyone's like, you can't let Bishop get to his left hand. You can't let Bishop get to his left hand. Well, what does George Washington do? They put him in a middle pick and roll. And almost every team in the country guard middle pick and rolls the same way. They want to force the guy to his left hand. So going into the game, you have to flip your pick and roll coverage. And now, as I'm sitting out there getting ready to guard this middle ball screen, and I'm a guard, and I'm so used to adjusting my stance this way to force the guy to his left hand, now I'm trying to adjust it, and you're going to make mistakes. And when he gets to his left hand, it's over, because he can pass, he can get down the lane. Like he's not shooting this high percentage from the 3-point line, but he's still getting 23 a game. Like it's just, and then all of a sudden, Brendan Adams and Coach Caputo talked to me about this. Like this is like the first time in his college career that he's had this level of a role, and he's completely taking advantage of it. And he's got size, he's physical. Now those two guys got to play a lot of minutes. So if they somehow get to Dayton, maybe they beat Dayton. I don't know. I'm not saying they will or won't. But do they wear down because of how much they have to do? But, man, those two guards are fun to watch.
Hey guys, just a reminder, our sponsor for today's episode is Run Your Pool. They are hosting the Field of 68 Bracket Challenge. This year, they are giving away $1,500 in free prizes. It's all an incentive for you to get on there and find out just how good their platform is. I've been using them for my bracket pools for years. I've used them for Super Bowl squares. I use them for everything that I need to use them for. The biggest survivor pool that I'm in for both NFL and NCAA tournament is by Run Your Pool. So go check them out. The link's below. Tap in. Yeah, and when you are talking about a tournament setting, I think we hear this all the time, right? It's very important to have really good guards, because at some point in a knockout situation, right, you're going to get to a point in the game where it's a close game and what you're running doesn't work, right? Your sets don't work. You're scouted too well. They're switching everything, so you can't actually scheme anything and get any offense out of it. You got to have someone that can go make a play, point blank period. And you tell me if I'm wrong here. I don't know if there's any team in the country that has two guys, not in the country, in the conference, that has two guys that are better at going and making a play than James Bishop and Brendan Adams. Is that fair?
I agree. I totally agree. And again, how many left-handed point guards are out there, right? Like, and you don't have any time to prep. like Dayton's not going to know who they're playing until 7:00 on Wednesday night. Mm-hmm. And then you got to turn around and play 5:00 the next day. So in less than 24 hours, you have to change your pick and roll coverage and get that in your kids' heads that, hey, this is how we're guarding. Oh, and by the way, when Brendan Adams is up here with a live dribble, we got to force him this way. And when James Bishop is up, we got to force him that way. Like that's a hard thing to do. That's why I think, Davidson is a dangerous team in this tournament. Why? Because of their style of play. And you don't have any time to prepare for all the back cutting and motion and Foster Lawyer and Menenga. Like, you don't have time. And in a game like that, your normal defensive principles are thrown out the window because of all the cutting and the movement. So it's going to be fun to watch. Like I said, I hope if VCU doesn't win that they get in. They only have one quad one win. I still don't understand how their Pittsburgh win on a neutral floor is not a quad one win. I don't get that. I think if Pittsburgh can climb,
Pittsburgh's not good enough, man. Like Pittsburgh just has terrible computer numbers. It is what it is. It tells you what you need to know about the ACC, that a team that was playing for the ACC regular season title on Saturday and lost by 2 is not a quad one win on a neutral
quad one win. So I don't know if they can make a run in the ACC tournament. Does their net number increase? And now all of a sudden VCU has 2 quad one wins. I think they got to get to the finals to have any chance. I think that's big. And here's the other thing that kind of sucks for them is they were without Ace Baldwin for a number of games. They were without.
That's what you got to push, right? If you're Mike Rhodes, you need to be telling everybody that'll listen is that you are 22-5 when Ace Baldwin is there, right? You lost two games in the non-conference without him, to Arizona on a neutral and at Memphis. And then you lost at Temple and you lost at home to Jacksonville when he wasn't right. He was still getting healthy.
And the Jacksonville loss, Deloach didn't play, their top rebounder.
Mm-hmm.
So like there's some injuries there that had that not happened, they could be sitting here. And here's the thing about them that's amazing. They've won a lot of close games. Mm-hmm. Like they've won a lot of close games. And that's what this tournament's going to come down to. So if you're Mike Rhodes and you're in those timeouts and the game's close, guys, we've already been here. They haven't been here as much as we've been here. That's the thing about Davidson too. 8 of their losses are by 2 possessions or less in the league, and they're 2-6 in those games. So again, dangerous team. This tournament, man, it's going to be fun to watch. And we haven't really even talked about arguably the best team in the league, the most talented team in the league, in Dayton.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to ask you. Is that I want you to give me a favorite. I think that most people would probably agree VCU and Dayton are the 2 teams kind of above everybody else. So I want you to, out of those 2 teams, who's more likely to win?
I think because of the bracket, I like Dayton. They've had guys in and out of the lineup all year. I think Kamara is the complete X factor. He got in foul trouble in that St. Louis game. That was big. Him being on the bench changes their team because he can switch. He can do so many different things, and he is a mismatch problem on offense. He can post you up. He can take you to the outside. Holmes may win A-10 Player of the Year, right? Like I said, I think he gets it. I think what Bishop and GW have just the turnaround. That's why I kind of give him a nod. But Kamara is the X factor. And Malachi Smith and Kobe Elvis, they've got really good guards. And like you said, those guys can go make a play. Kamara has to stay out of foul trouble. If he stays out of foul trouble, I think, they'll have the best crowd there, I would assume. Them and VCU will travel the best. So I pick Dayton.
Yeah. It's hard to disagree, but I do like VCU just because I think that I would buy Ace Baldwin a little bit more than I would Dayton's guard play. But it's like picking your favorite flavor of ice cream, right? Some people like chocolate, some people like vanilla, some people like mint pistachio, cookie dough, whatever. All right, and then after that, give me one sleeper. Is it George Mason? Is that your team that you think can?
Yeah, I think George Mason or I think Davidson. And both those guys could lose in the quarterfinals or the second round. They could also make a run to the finals. Foster Lawyer is outstanding. And what he's had to do this year with everything that they've lost. Everyone's like, what's wrong with Foster Lawyer? Why last year he was 4th in the country in 3-point field goal percentage, and now he's only shooting 29% from the 3. Well, he lost.
Look at how hard the shots are, people. Come on.
He lost 3 really good players that now guys can help off and put more attention to him. They couldn't do that last year. But they've won 5 out of 6. It's a difficult style to play against on no prep. So I think they're dangerous, but I think with what Ticket Gaines being back in that lineup, Cooper, Adoro, and how they're playing, they found a way to win the Richmond game. The game shouldn't have been nearly as close as it was. Richmond turns it over with the game on the line, and George Mason wins the game. But they've won 6 in a row. They're confident coming in here, and they've got size, length, and Adoro up front. That's what you like. They haven't shot a great percentage from 3, but what are you going to do? Are you going to double Adoro? I think you have to. He's too good. Like, you can't just let him post up down there and operate one-on-one. If you don't double, then he's going to have a field day. If you do double, there's going to be threes that are there. Can they make them? That would be the biggest thing. When Adoro throws it out of the double team, who's open and can they make threes? If they can do that, they could win the thing. They could win it.
They are, like I said, they have 2 losses with Ticket Gaines in the lineup since Thanksgiving. I'm gonna say that George Mason wins it. I'm with you. I'm on the bandwagon. That's a.
Well, I think too.
You got to go off the radar with these picks, right? You can't. When you make the pick, you can't just pick Shaw.
Everyone wants us to pick Dayton or VCU or St. Louis just because they were all picked to win it in the beginning. Man, let's go with somebody else right now. And here's the thing about Mason: they guard because they have size, they length, they can switch 1 through 4. They defend. They have been. I think their Fordham win. Correct me if I'm wrong. Fordham was like 3 for 20 something in the first half from the field. Like that's insane. So defense travels in tournaments. You need a good guard to be able to go make a play. I like the Mason pick too.
Yeah, I love the irony of a Kim English team being really good defensively when he was unable to guard the chairs that he went up against in his NBA draft combine workout. So listen, Matt, I appreciate the time. Enjoy being on set. Those NBC studios. I guess it's officially the USA Network studios, right? Really nice up there.
NBC. You walk in and it says NBC, so it's still NBC. You got your dressing room in there. I was never used to the makeup. That's taken me some time to get used to. And they start blotting that stuff all over your face. But I FaceTimed my kids the other day while that was happening, so they got a kick out of it.
Yeah, I think hopefully you got the same dressing room that I had. When I was there, the last time I was at those NBC studios, I told you this before we started recording. I was watching you live on TV get informed that the A10 tournament was not going to be played. It was the day that everything shut down from COVID. That was you know what? I'm going to ask you about that. What was that experience like? Because I know what it was like for me. I'm sitting there getting everything ready for the show, and then all of a sudden you have to sit there, and we find out 10 minutes before we're live on national television that none of this stuff is happening. So take me through what those moments were like finding that out. I don't think I've ever actually talked to you about this.
It was surreal. Like we were one of those teams that was trending. We were trending. We had beaten VCU a couple of weeks ago. I think we had won like 5 out of 6, kind of like where Davidson is. We were trying to have a really young team. Trey Mitchell's freshman year was just absolutely ridiculous. And we were trending. And the night before the game, I'm like dialed in to this whole deal that's going on in Oklahoma City because Coach Donovan's the head coach of the Oklahoma City Thunder. And I remember being like, they just canceled that game. Like, what's going to happen with ours? And the night before a game, you don't sleep anyway. I just kept like hitting the refresh button on Twitter. Like, is this canceled? Is this canceled? Mm-hmm. So we get up, we go to pregame meal. Everything's kind of normal. And we get to the arena and we're in the locker room. My director of basketball operations, Brian Grossman, I don't look at my phone on game day. So he keeps refreshing and we're walking down the tunnel out to the floor. And Grossman says to me, they just canceled the Big 12. And he goes, they just canceled the SEC. So we get out to the floor, and I'm like, there's no way that we're playing this game. There's no way. I do the normal things. I go give Mike Rhodes a hug, got great respect for him, known him for a long time. And all of a sudden, my SID comes sprinting across the floor and hands me the phone. It's my athletic director, my former athletic director. And he's like, get the team off the floor. Get him back in the locker room. Tournament's canceled. And Mike Rhodes walks up to me and he goes, you want to play one-on-one to give these fans something at least to cheer about? And then it's like you shift because we had one senior, the Jerry Baptiste, great kid. You got to go in there and like shift to it's over. And we get to the bus, and all of a sudden, Drew Dickerson, the head of media for the Atlantic 10, says, "Can you come to a press conference?" So me and Rhodes go in a press conference in the Barclays Center. There's a ton of media there because we're in Brooklyn, New York. And Rhodes started coughing, and my wife's texting me saying, "Move away from." We didn't know. Nobody knew what was going on, and it was just so surreal. I sent the team back to the hotel, and I walked from the Barclays Center back to our hotel, and we had no idea then what was getting ready to come. And it was, we got on the bus, we drove back to Amherst. Ryan Bamford, the athletic director, was like having an all-staff meeting that night. I walk in there, and it's just like, we're shutting things down for a week, and then it exploded into that. It was
never came back.
It was one of the most surreal experiences of my life, and I'm not trying to make excuses for my tenure there, but that hurt because we were kind of going this way, and all of a sudden that gets shut down, and then the next season we only played 15 games. So, it was surreal, man, to say the least.
Yeah, I remember very specifically that we're sitting there, and I'm on the left side of the desk, right, and I'm watching the TV. And they zoom in on your face, and you can kind of read your lips, and you're basically saying, "Tournament's canceled," right? Because and you got this look on your face, like, "What is going on?" Which is what I think everybody in America was kind of.
It was crazy. Yeah, I mean, it's just like you just walk out of there, and it's like it's over. Like think about Dayton, right? Like they were the number 2 team in the country.
They're never gonna have a season like that again. Like
not many people do. I mean,
and Dayton, like that's maybe I shouldn't say never, but like that is the dream season. You got the National Player of the Year. You got a chance to win an actual national title at Dayton, and it just poof, gone. It sucks. Yeah. It is what it is. What can you do?
But this tournament, Rob, this is going to be fun. I'm excited to watch it, and we'll see what happens come Sunday.
Yep, it's going to be a wild tournament. Make sure you tune in. USA Network, right?
USA Network, the first 2 ESPN Plus, the first round, second and third rounds are on USA Network, and I believe the semifinals and finals are on CBS. I could be wrong, but I believe that's what it is.
Well, the ones about USA Network because that's the one where you're going to be on TV. So if you want to see Matt McCall's pretty face all dolled up with the makeup that he gets in his dressing room, make sure to tune in. Matt, always a pleasure. I'm going to see you again in about 11 hours on After Dark tonight. So you're going to have some more of my takes to fire off.
You got it, man. Thanks, Rob.